All right, welcome again, everyone, to another exciting video. You are chilling with me, Luton Vazwe, on my channel, Chess with Luton Vazwe. Chess with Luton Vazwe, my take, my interpretation, my thoughts, and everything that has to do with chess, politics, the game itself, my games, everything, the etceteras. We are still busy with our series on the Steinitz Chess Festival 2024, and today we are looking at game 4, or right now, because I've uploaded these videos in one day. We are looking at game 4 of the Steinitz Chess Championship, and I'm playing a very notable player, Jason Davies. And in this game, I'm playing the black pieces. I should say that, yeah, in this game I struggled a bit, and I'm sort of disappointed with the way that I played. There were so many missed opportunities, but the game was very complex as well, in my opinion. So, yeah, let's begin. We start with an opening which basically is just somebody freestyling. So can see that there is the double bishops that have been ketoed. So yeah, so basically this is general development that is taking place at the moment. So this is the first instance where I sort of depart from just general developing. My idea here is I want to exchange this long range bishop because it was putting some pressure on my position on the king side. So that's what happens. Takes, and e5 is played. Okay, so he's controlling some space, but at the same time, this pawn is a bit loose. And because of this pawn being loose, it allows my knight to sort of aim for the d4 square. So I'm looking at ideas of playing it on to h6, to f5, and then heading to d4. Hence the reason why I didn't play it on d7. So rook onto e1, queen onto c7, queen onto e2, and now the knight heads to the d4 square. Of course, there are things that he could do just to, counter this. Say, for example, moving the pawn to c3. But I think I'd be happy with that, especially after, say, b6 and bishop a6, which might put pressure on the d3 square. So anyway, he plays c4, which was very shocking to me that he just, relinquished the protection of the d4 square in this way. So knight onto f5, heading towards the d4 square, rook onto c1, and I play b6, not rushing to enter with knight d4. And he plays this move g4. And yeah, this confused me a bit um, because, first of all, not only is it a very weakening move, it's just allowing the d4 square to be, occupied. And at the same time, now there's some other squares that I have which I can actually work with. Of course, I understand the logic of the move. With the knight going to f1 to g3, perhaps he can start some counterplay on the king side. But of course, this is a weakening move. So basically, now the agenda that I have is to go to the f4 square. I'm not sure which idea perhaps is the more accurate, whether I should have gone still for the d4 square. But I was just thinking that after c takes, knight takes, once the queen perhaps moves, then he can always, challenge the knight on d4. And I sort of didn't like this idea that I'd be, removing this knight from this, dominant square. So it's the reason why I thought, let me just aim for something else. Knight onto e7, knight onto g1, knight g6, and you can see the knight is heading to f4. And I mean, he doesn't even do anything to try and to, stop, try to control, nothing of the sort. He just plays knight onto g3 as if I'm not, heading to this square, and that was surprising to me. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, and now knight onto d4. And now the basic idea that I have is I'm going to exchange this knight off, and then I have this bishop which bears down on the long diagonal very nicely. So in this case, in terms of positional advantage, definitely black has a slight, if not a huge edge, but a slight edge. So yeah, so king onto g1 is played, moving away from the diagonal. I occupy the open file. He plays knight onto g5, and here I was afraid of the move, queen going to g5. At first, I thought that perhaps I might play pawn onto h6, but then I thought perhaps he might, sacrifice with knight onto f6 here, which after takes on f6. There's queen onto h6. The pawn is going to take on e7. The knight is going to join the party. And, you can just sketch it out yourself that it's a bit shaky. It's a bit shaky. So I thought that perhaps I should just avoid that by playing queen onto e7. The engines frown at this and say that perhaps he could have played knight onto e7, but even this doesn't strike me as a good idea. Um, but anyway, yeah, queen onto e7 played, and immediately, because the queen now, is responsible for defense, he decides to contest the open file. So rook takes, and in this position, I looked at the complications, and I thought, let's just go for an easy, setup where we just exchange everything. And because I have this bishop that's, putting tempo pressure on the knight, I get tempo because the knight has to move. Secondly, I get tempo because the pawn has to move, and my knight gets to enter onto his side there. So knight onto d2, knight c6, attacking the pawn. The pawn has to be protected, and knight b4, and the knight is sort of putting pressure on the queen side there. King onto f8. I'm just trying to get the king to a better square, so h6 for g6. Um, Knight onto e1, and the knight returns to g2, putting pressure on the h pawn and also attacking f4, so g6 for example, and then f4 is loose, so king onto g3. And here, yeah, it was just about where should my pieces go, where do they belong. I'm trying to put the knight on the d4 square, that's one. But after this move g5, I was sort of happy with the fact that now the knight gets a new square to occupy. So after knight f6, knight f5, king h3, I play the move h4, and you can see that sooner or later one of these pawns will have to fall if the king should move away from them. So knight onto h6, king e7, knight f6, and knight onto d4. And now the knight is heading to e2 to attack the pawn on f4. Unfortunately, he cannot defend the pawn, which is very, very, very funny. So I thought that here I felt that, okay, now I'm getting a bit of an edge. So knight f to e4, knight onto e2, knight onto d6, attacking the bishop. And here I played bishop onto a6. The engine recommends that I should have played bishop onto a8. Okay, first I'll tell you why I didn't consider this move. It's because I thought he has knight onto c8, and after king d7, he can take on a7, and that way, even if I take this pawn here, I actually have equalized in terms of pawns. But actually, there's knight d3, which I didn't see in the game, and I get the pawn on e5, and this should be particularly good for black. But anyway, I didn't see that, so I played bishop onto a6, just keeping guard of the c8 square. But you can see that the bishop is sort of very much misplaced. Knight onto b4, and now here's the difficulty. The bishop doesn't have a means to come back into the game. The king cannot try to protect the bishop coming into the game because the f7 square, the f7 pawn is a bit loose. The knight on c6 somehow is not involved in any, defensive tasks as well. So it was a difficult thing to solve. So basically here, it's just a repetition of moves in an attempt to try to solve the problem here. So bishop b7 check, the king goes to d7, but there is no way to actually make progress, so I return back to e7. And again, this is all an attempt of trying to figure out how I'm supposed to to get myself moving in terms of my position. You can see that even though I have the pawn up, but my position is very passive. And one thing that I have to avoid is to allow a situation where this knight exchanges itself off for this knight, because, well, yeah, being left with this bishop is not going to contribute much to the position, especially since it cannot, make its way to, say, the c2 square, trying to put pressure on b3 and etc etc. So yeah, I mean, we just continued from here, knight on to b6, b5, and pawn takes pawn, and here, unfortunately, even though I don't know what else I could have done, I made um, a mistake. I touched, unfortunately, the king, and I had to move it to e7, of which now it allows him to gain the pawn on c5, which means that this is a dead draw, in fact. So I played bishop e8, offered a draw. He thought a while, and then after that, he accepted the draw. I mean, a bit disappointing, because yeah, there's stuff that I could have done in order to gain sort of the advantage. I mean, the position looked very nice. I gained a free pawn, and if I had invested a bit of time, I think I should have seen that the e5 pawn eventually will hang if I allow him to take the a7 pawn. But unfortunately, yeah, these things were hidden from me in the game. But nonetheless, a draw was good, because now I'm on 3.5 out of 4, and that means that already I am a point ahead in terms of the tournament standings. So that was good for me. Yeah. So round 5, heading there, and unfortunately, because of the situation that I put myself in, I had to make sure that I win at least the next game, so that I can be secure for the prize in the last game. So yeah, anyway, guys, like and subscribe, share, and yeah, don't forget, we'll be having a WhatsApp group, Chess with Luton Vazwe. Send your voice notes, send your comments as well. We'll read the comments online. And not only that, we will also listen to the voice notes online. So, yeah, guys, this is all from Chess with Luton Vazwe for now. We are signing out. Thank you very much.